This is my updated fall crappie guide where I'm going to go A to Z through how to find the right lake, how to find the right locations, the gear you should have, the lures you should have, the perfect cadence, and more, so you guys can find success on your next fall crappie trip. So the first thing that we're going to go over is how you guys can find a lake. Now, what I recommend doing is looking at your local state survey reports. Here in Minnesota, it's Minnesota Lake Finder. It allows you to look at lakes around your area, then check their latest survey, using surveys from the latest years, and then seeing that the lake you have is both small enough in size to cover and has a healthy population of crappie is going to be your best ticket when you guys find a lake. I also recommend checking out the boat accesses on there just to make sure there is a public ramp that'll work for the boat that you have. When it comes to identifying panfish and crappie, especially on your electronics, on all of them, you're gonna find them suspended. I find one way they get set apart most of the year is that crappie do have a little bit bigger marks and a little bit more separation than, a lot of congregated smaller bluegill do. So I look for essentially suspended larger pods of fish, and once you get an eye for it, I can start identifying the crappie from the sunnies and stuff, because they can be smaller. Today they were a lot larger groups, but they can be smaller and they tend to be slightly bigger on down imaging and a little bit more separated. So here's a couple examples of that. These are crappies. Sometimes you'll find plenty of crappies and bluegills mixed in this time of year, or any sunfish. Yeah, and the key is to just find those suspended fish on your graphs, and that's going to be a dead giveaway. You're looking at panfish and very likely crappie. When it comes to fall crappie locations, what I find is that the fish that have been shallow and in the weeds during the day, during the summer, start to congregate more and shift deeper during the fall before turnover. So the colder the water temps, the deeper you'll find them midday. So this means they are near those same areas. So look for structure right next to weed lines, followed by a big basin. I'll have a map here for you guys to see, and these are just some examples of where I'm finding these fish. They're transitioning on and off the structure, and as we get colder water temps, what we're doing is we're going to find them over the basin. So in fall, you're going to find them transitioning back and forth into deeper water, and a lot of times by the end of October, up here in Minnesota, really the upper Midwest, I find them in a lot of these classic lakes over the basin, even midday. It makes them very easy to find on any sort of electronics. You can see them on down imaging easy enough, side imaging, and of course live sonar makes it very simple to find and target them. They make themselves very apparent because they are suspended that time of year, and you're going to find them midday doing a lot of that. So when choosing your line and rod, the number one thing I recommend is pairing your lure to your rod and line. So the lighter the bait, the lighter the rod. If you're going to be throwing really, really light stuff, like I mentioned later in the season, ice baits, small tungsten, I highly recommend using a light or ultralight rod. The one I use is the Panfish series from St. Croix. I'm using their light and ultralight in those situations. If you want something more universal, this is a medium light fast action. Any medium light's going to be a great option for most brands. Medium light fast or medium light extra fast will work for panfish stuff. Just pair them with lighter line. I like a 6-pound for crappie a lot of the time, but for that really, really light stuff, I'll go 4-pound, and I'll link my favorite brands and type of line below. If you're also just looking for a good walleye rod, something super universal, the medium light fast or extra fast from St. Croix, the Avid, or even their Icon series are going to be amazing options that give you the quality for the type of technical fishing you're looking for, that'll be able to really work with a variety of species. So right now I'm throwing the medium light. As things get a lot more finesse later in fall, closer to ice fishing, I will be switching over to their light or ultralight rods. All right, so when you guys find fish, we're finding them off the structure and right off the deeper water, exactly how you would find them kind of this time of year, transitioning kind of off of structure into more basin fishing. What I'm going to do is when I get up to them, I'm just going to do a light cast. You don't need live scope for any of this, like you need it for none of it. I like to do it for fun, but at the end of the day, if you know the fish are there and where they're sitting, you can just cast off the back deck, you can drop your lure off the side, but the key is really going to be having a consistent cadence with these fish. Right now, I've got the scope on. It's fun to practice kind of sharpshooting them, but at the end of the day, the key is really just going to be casting out to the general area and doing a very slow cadence, an occasional twitch now and then back. I've always find a slow retrieve, letting the lure drop into the fish and just doing a slow retrieve to be the ticket when targeting crappies. All right, so when it comes to plastics in the fall, what I like using is anything from the Bobby Garland line. They're really, really durable. They have a lot of natural movement, so they're just gonna be a long-lasting plastic you guys are gonna have success with. And out of them, which there are a ton, here are my favorites. So the first, you guys know I love the Bobby Garland Mayfly. Traditionally use this as a spring plastic, but it's also very effective in the fall because of the natural movement. And they're actually coming out with a smaller size now. I highly recommend for late fall when temperatures drop. The itty bitty Mayfly, and you guys can find that linked below. But that's also going to be highly effective during ice. I love the Slab Romar ones, the live Romars. These I put a beading on crappie every single fall. Just a very durable plastic, giving you that natural minnow look. Minnows work really well this time of year. So I also have the itty bitty Slab Hunter, and these are just really effective because they're very, very small. Great if you want to try plastics later in the season when the temperatures drop, because they pair well with 1/32, even 1/64 ounce jigs. So very slow falling to entice that competition that you guys have heard me talk about before. A little more aggressive presentations, you can never go wrong with the forward-facing Sonar minnow. Had this in a lot of different videos. I recommend these much more early fall when you have that really aggressive bite and the fish are stacked. It's happening a little bit later this season, but a lot of times that's what happens as temperatures drop in September up here in, you know, Minnesota, the Midwest. And they're just super durable, you know, really effective for a lot of different species. But I like to really downsize as we go into colder weather and we want, you know, we're looking at a little bit different type of bite. As for other baits, you can never go wrong with using a minnow. Fall fishing, I'd say if you're struggling at all and you're seeing those fish stacked in the basin or right off the break, throw on a minnow, use a Lindy live bait jig with that short shank, and you're gonna hook up on fish. Tough to beat live bait when the bite is tough. My final piece of advice is to simply take notes as you go. Something I think a lot of anglers take for granted is taking notes. And that doesn't mean just marking down spots when you find them, but also marking down the conditions. You know, when you're on a good bite, being sure to take notes on how deep you were fishing, the presentations you were using, how the fish reacted. Just a simple notebook or notes in your phone can go a long ways in understanding fish behavior and ultimately having spots that you can rely on over and over again throughout the year. Thank you so much for following along on this video. Hopefully you guys found some tips that will benefit you the next time you target fall crappie. For more, be sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, and turn notifications on, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.